Hey, I'm Jason.
And I'm Jam.
In today's episode, we are going to be sharing some thoughts from our life for yours about trees.
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 Where are they?
Make like a tree and leave.
Make like a tree. And would you please, go somewhere else?
Special thanks to Garrett in Texas. I think he's a friend of yours, Jam. So
Yes.
thank you, friend of Jam's in Texas, for suggesting this topic.
He's the kind of guy, he's probably not going to listen to this. So,
Probably not.
whatever, Garrett. Whatever.
That's okay. We will leave him alone and go on to thinking about where are trees?
Where are they? They're all around us, Jason.
They are.
It's a great question.
I'm looking at one right now out my window.
They're also, if you think about it, they're also underneath us.
Wow.
Yep, I know.
That's deep.
I know. It is
Deep in the ground.
I seriously am really amazed by trees.
Oh, yeah?
I'm going to cut the sarcasm or whatever. And I am amazed by them. I'm going to have to reel myself back a little bit because I love them so
Yeah.
much. So,
You're jumping out of that tree of amazement.
yeah. I'm climbing that tree of amazement.
So I think that trees are just solid pieces of earth material. I think that's a great definition for them. They're just
A solid piece of-
pieces,
yeah.
slightly pliable, depending on the type
Yeah.
of earth material.
Yeah, and there's definitely like here's a question I have.
Yeah.
When is something a tree and when is it not? So there's a lot of plants. Plants like the broader category.
Sure.
So when does it become a tree?
I think it becomes a tree from day one.
No, when is a tree and not when is a plant not a tree? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Where's the dividing line of tree versus not tree?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that it's because trees are so varied,
Yeah.
like think about like berry trees or not berry trees, those are berry bushes, fruit trees, like
Yeah.
apples, peaches, or whatever. And then you have just like the redwoods of California, or
Yeah.
palm trees.
Oh, yeah.
Like they're so different and they have different purposes. So I don't know. I guess it would come down to like what's the material,
Yeah.
and does it grow into sort of a look, I
Yeah.
guess, branches and stuff like that. I know the plants have branches, and trees probably fall under the branch species or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think I
This
don't
is
know.
what's so funny about us not knowing what we're talking about. It's like
Yeah.
anyone who's like a natural biologist or something like that might be like, oh gosh.
Yeah.
Or what's the people who study plants? Horticulture.
Herbologists.
Oh yeah, something like that.
or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like, so you said something interesting. You said like a bush or like a shrub about berries.
Sure.
So I guess you could say those aren't trees?
Yeah, I think they're considered bushes.
Yeah. So if we're going to make that distinction, here's what I would say. I think it's a tree when it has a trunk. So it's a chunk, like there's a main base that goes up for a while before real branches start coming out.
Okay.
And it can that obviously lends to its height because it can
Sure.
have a lot of branches, but there's that important gap part. If you have a kid draw a tree, they're going to draw a trunk and then branches.
Sure. Yeah.
And there's also
Oh, sure.
a level of height that it can achieve that I think shrubs and stuff cannot.
Yeah.
So shrubs and bushes are limited, and trees have their limits, but they're much taller.
Yeah, that's true. Trees generally are taller than the average human being. Most trees.
When they reach their
When they, as they continue to grow. Like we had these, my parents have these little, I think they're evergreen or pine trees
Yeah.
that were like dwarf pine trees. So they were basically as long as my arm, which
Yeah.
is about 2 feet long. And that was like when we planted them, it was just like planting a little tree. And then it grew, and now they're like as tall as me. So
Wow.
I think they weren't always going to be small. They were always going to grow into these kind of bigger trees,
Yeah.
even if they're not as big as like a fir tree or something like that.
Yeah.
So I do think trees, get to that point where they're like that.
and you can't really get wood from anything that's not a tree. Meaning
Yeah.
like a little shrub but has some wood in it. Obviously, it's got some sticks, but trees get massive, and then you can get wood from them, which is awesome.
I've tried to get wood from our basil plant in our garden, and it's been really hard,
Yeah.
really difficult.
Yeah.
Wood is a pretty amazing substance.
Yeah.
I think out of all of the earth materials that are out there, wood's my favorite.
Yeah. It's kind of like a no contest deal. It's it occurs in nature. There's amazing stuff you can do with it.
Yeah.
Compared to twigs or just dirt or
Yeah.
rocks, wood is really strong and allows you to actually do stuff with it.
Yeah, like you can't you could live without it, one could say, because you can't really eat wood. I mean, you could eat wood somehow.
think you shouldn't.
I have no idea what the nutritious aspects of wood is,
Right.
but it gives us shelter. You can make it build shelter, and it also can provide firewood.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so many other wood substances plywood, things we've figured out how to make from it, like with fibers of wood, like MDF, and like all these different things that we've kind of been able to do that all start as, wood, but we can make more materials out of it that, like plywood, it doesn't look as great or whatever, but it's like very, very, very useful.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the siding of your house.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
I wonder what they do with the bark of trees, because I don't see bark sold at Lowe's and Home Depot these days. I wonder what they do with it.
Interesting. Would it be a good mulch?
Because I feel like trees, actually, maybe it is mulch. Because I feel like what they do with trees
Yeah.
that are, especially for materials for building and stuff like that, I think they really make the best of the whole tree,
Yeah.
Like they grind up stuff to make mulch, and they cut beams out of the big parts of the tree. They can cut beams.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting. And it's cool is that it grows back. I don't know about like minerals and like gold and silver and copper. Like I don't know if that grows back or how that even really is made. Obviously, I'm not a earth scientist, but you can like use the seeds from one tree to grow another tree, and so it's like you have almost this endless supply.
It's a renewable. Yeah, as long as we're doing that
right. As long as we're doing
at the right rate and stuff. Yeah, you're right. And there's just so many types of trees, which is overwhelming. You already mentioned that a little bit ago, like the fruit trees and stuff like that. But I just mean like from redwoods to oaks that we have a lot in Texas to like just weird trees around the world. It's just like they're all trees, and I think it's just kind of mind blowing. A lot of things are like this. You could do the same thing with like fish or other types of things that are in nature, but just the sheer amount of different kinds of trees and different ways they can look, and ones that don't ever lose their leaves and stuff like that. I think it just, like once you open that can of worms, it can get pretty amazing pretty fast.
Once you open that can of acorns, that can of nuts. And I think it's cool too because trees also have a sense of beauty to them.
Yeah.
As is like, I grew up in New England where
you guys have trees up there?
Yeah. There's a couple of trees up there.
Okay.
Especially a little bit more than here in the Texas area.
Interesting.
Yeah, just
Okay.
a few more.
Yeah, you guys have been hoarding over there, I guess.
Yeah, we really have, what can we say?
Horrible.
But there is like, they call them like trees on fire because during the fall, the trees turn into these brilliant red and yellow and orange colors, which is beautiful. Like New England's known for having some of the best foliage areas of the country.
Yeah.
And so there's beauty to trees as well. And then even the wood itself, like you think about, like I love guitars. And so there are so many different guitars that are like, oh, well, this has zebra wood and this has, smoked maple or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's like this beauty element too as well. Like my wedding ring has a koa, which is a Hawaiian tree inlay. And so again, beauty.
Yeah.
It's like trees still having beauty.
I agree. I've been very, very taken with trees, and their beauty and their height and size, and just like they can get so old, like, and it takes they grow slowly, so it makes sense. But just the fact that you can look at some trees that you just drive by every day or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, that tree is many times older than me.
Yeah.
And it just kind of changes your perspective a little bit. You kind of realize a little bit how temporary we are as humans and how a lot of things in nature are so much less so. Like, sure, you can cut down a tree and make wood out of it or whatever. And so that it's still temporary too. But as is, left alone, it's going to outlive many people.
Probably, yeah.
And so it's just kind of, I think it can add a little bit of newfound respect to it as a thing that is alive, even though it doesn't have any thoughts or knowledge or whatever.
Pretty amazing. And they're also pretty fragile. I think you had something that happened in your neighborhood recently where you realized, whoa, they're so immense and strong, but they're also so fragile.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. So we had a storm a few weeks ago, and it caused like quite a few trees to break, and in some significant ways. In our specific backyard and front yard, we just lost some little pieces that were probably just growth from this new year. So some weak little twigs and little like leaf kind of things. Yeah. So it kind of looks like we have all these little kind of little bitty trees all over our yard right now, but it's broken pieces because of how strong the winds were in the storm. But I took a walk around our neighborhood the next morning, and there were a lot of trees that had fallen. Like one tree had fallen on some cars, which is like those cars are probably totaled, and like they're that heavy. I mean, trees are heavy, and so it's like there's enough force to break it. Wow! It's even a car, which is a pretty strong deal, made of metal, can get totaled by it. And a few of the trees I saw one that was like broken at the trunk, like the main trunk, not like a piece up top.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how that happened, but I was almost sad about it just because I was like, man, this tree has been around for maybe 100 years. I really don't know how long, but at least 100, I would guess.
Wow.
It was a really big, some kind of oak. And it was just like, man, like that's irreplaceable.
Lived a good life.
You could plant another tree right next to it, but you can't just get a tree to be 100 quickly, or you can't just like really easily transport a tree in. Mm-hmm. And it kind of made me think a lot about how like the value of a tree, not like in terms of dollar, but like it just like a lot of things, it takes time on it.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of made me realize like I kind of have some ownership of the trees in our yard, and if one of them died or broke or whatever, it would just make me sad. I'm like, man, we can't replace this. Like,
yeah.
If even if my car gets totaled, I could get a different one. I could even get one of the exact same year if I wanted, you know. But like, I can't just buy a tree of the same year. So
trees, if you think about it, the value of trees goes up over time compared to cars. They're like the exact opposite. Like you can't be like, yeah, I'll take a 1997 red oak, please, because it's like the size of the moon. It's huge.
Yeah.
And it'd be so valuable.
Yeah.
But you can't do that with trees.
Yeah.
And cars, you're like, who wants a 1997 red Honda?
And one thing I hadn't really thought about too, I was talking to my neighbor, and he told me that like, I mean, like trees obviously can get sick, which is a whole thing I don't even know much about at all. But some of the trees that break in storms are trees that are actually a little bit sick. So they're more brittle, or maybe they started kind of dying on the inside, but it's not showing on the outside yet. That's part of it, which is one thing. But it just kind of opened up my mind about how much more complicated trees are than I would normally think.
They're so complicated.
Yep.
Trees. It's a lot more complicated than you think.
Yeah. For something that doesn't have a brain, it's pretty complicated.
Or do they?
Oh, gosh. They're everywhere.
The earth is our...
Trees, they're everywhere. They're all around us. You can't get away. This summer, you'll never escape the trees.
Are crepe myrtles trees? They look like trees.
I think they are.
Wow. I also was realizing recently, as in like this morning, how expensive trees can be when you buy them. Like we bought a piece of plywood.
Yeah.
And it was like $20.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the heck? This is crazy.
It's not even like do you even know what kind of wood that is? Because a lot of times plywood.
It's pine.
Yeah. A lot of times plywood or whatever kind of wood that's like a little cheaper is like pine. But that's just like pieces of wood glued together, and it's still expensive.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, relatively expensive.
It's crazy. It's crazy how that works. One time I built a skate ramp out of wood in our backyard, and it required a lot of wood, but it was really solid.
And
it lasted a while.
Did you like learn the stunts?
I learned how to drop in. It took me
Nice.
about 100 times, and I fell a lot of those times. And then I finally did it, and then I was able to do it for a little while, and then we stopped using it.
Dude, I had no idea you skateboarded.
Terrible on my part, sorry.
Yeah. Man, you killed that tree, made a ramp out of it, and I thought it was going to have some sort of new purpose, and yet now it's just this forgotten piece of childhood.
That's terrible. But yeah, even my home is filled with trees. Like the bookshelves over there, this kitchen table. I think that IKEA thing is made with wood. Probably that MDF stuff that you talked about.
Which is nice
Our doors.
Yeah. It's just nice to be surrounded by I think what I like about it is that you could make all that same stuff out of plastic now. It may even last longer, honestly, if you made it out of plastic. But it would be less enjoyable to be around. And
sure.
So I think it's something about wood where it's like, oh yeah, I've got a little piece of nature inside of my house. It's like we want to have
That's true.
We want to have shelter from the outside, but we want to have some of the outside inside with us. You know?
Trees. We love them inside and outside. Well, I guess we've chopped down this topic and reused it for some great content. Thank you guys so much for listening. We're going to make a tree.
And thanks again, Garrett, for suggesting this topic.
Garrett, thank you so much for suggesting this topic. If you were a tree, you would be a hardy maple tree.
If you were a tree, you'd be a wild stallion. Anyway, thanks, Garrett. And once again, if you're willing to give us a little bit rating on iTunes, that'd be super appreciated.
Yeah, leave us some honest reviews. It's been fun growing with you.
Gosh, dang it. These are just not even really puns.
All right, Jam. Enough of these sappy goodbyes. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye, guys.